Hi, my name is Shafali Agarwal, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ivy Group, which is a boutique MBA admissions consulting company. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am very excited to be talking to you about the HBS interview and how to prepare for it. But before that, let me provide a brief introduction. I'm actually going to switch over to some slides. Great, so hopefully you can see the slides. So I received my MBA from Harvard Business School and my undergraduate degree from Princeton University. I'm also a member of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. My rich and multifaceted career across industries and functions makes me extremely well suited to understand the varied backgrounds of candidates applying to business school. I spent most of my career as a finance professional on Wall Street, where I worked both in the investment banking and asset management industries at leading companies like JP Morgan. I also have experience working in the educational nonprofit sector and as an entrepreneur, founding an online media company. However, I've always had a very strong passion for education and feel very lucky to have had the opportunities that I did, which led me to launching Ivy Group and to where I am today. So I've spent many years successfully coaching MBA applicants from all over the world, just like you, to the top MBA programs. And right before starting Ivy Group, I was Executive Vice President of Business Development and Strategy, as well as a Senior MBA Admissions Consultant at another admissions company. At HBS, I also had the very unique opportunity to really understand what top business schools are looking for in candidates when I served as VP Admissions of the Women's Student Association. So in that role, I collaborated directly with the HBS admissions office as a bridge between current and prospective and admitted students. I've also been a featured speaker both domestically and internationally on the QS World MBA Tour, have led webinars on GMAT Club, and have been quoted as an expert in US News. So with that introduction out of the way, when it comes to the interview, what is HBS looking for? So first off, HBS really seeks to educate leaders who make a difference in the world. And so it's not surprising that exhibiting leadership is a very important quality that those who are accepted to the school possess. Now, through your endeavors, both professional and extracurricular, HBS really wants to see your potential to lead and demonstrate impact. And this last point is actually really important. So through the projects, activities, and initiatives that you've led, how have you impacted people and organizations? And when you think about it, HBS and pretty much every top tier MBA program will really want to look at your past successes and achievements and really use those experiences as an indicator of how you're likely to succeed as a leader in the future. So this quality of leadership needs to come through very clearly in your interview. The second area that HBS will really want to understand is your engagement with the community and your service to others. If you look right on the school's website, one of the things that's listed with respect to what HBS is looking for is engaged community citizenship. And so at HBS, students are constantly interacting with one another, the professors, and the broader community through case discussions in the classroom, through study groups, and through different clubs and extracurricular activities. So your interviewer will really want to understand how you will contribute to the community at HBS. And so they will clearly want to see evidence of your contributions both in college and post-college, since this, again, will sort of be an indicator of how engaged you will be as a student when you are at HBS. And finally, your interviewer will seek to understand your interpersonal qualities. So remember, the case study method is utilized at HBS. Through the case method, you'll be asked to put yourself in the case protagonist's shoes to tackle the issues that the case protagonist is facing. And so this will involve being able to synthesize the information and formulate your own perspective. Now, since the class discussions really revolve around being able to understand your peers' viewpoints, in addition to sharing your own viewpoints, interpersonal qualities such as respect of others, self-awareness, maturity, and integrity are all really important to demonstrate. So through the interview, the admissions committee will really want to understand your interpersonal qualities and your ability to collaborate with others, as well as your willingness to learn from and share your experiences. And so putting everything together, your passions and values should be coming through. Now, at HBS, a member of the admissions committee who would have read your application quite thoroughly will be conducting the interview. And as you probably know, these interviews take place both on campus and off campus, and they're 30 minutes in length. You do have to be invited to interview, and those invitations are released in 2 waves in each round. About half of those who receive the invitation to interview will be extended an offer to attend the school. And so getting the interview, of course, is a very big deal. Your odds of being accepted at that point go up quite a bit. Now, there's one thing I want to note here, which is that because your interviewer will have a really good sense of your background, having read your application, your interviewer will have a very clear agenda of what to ask, which really means that some of your answers may be cut off in order for your interviewer to cover everything, and they may not come across as super friendly. But don't let this faze you. This is actually in some ways just meant to test how you react under pressure, because the case method does involve being put on the spot. Now, as we look at the overall interview, the questions that will be asked will be customized based on your application. So I can almost guarantee that no 2 candidates are going to get the exact same questions. But that being said, your interviewer will seek to understand your background, your future post-MBA goals, how you've behaved in the past, and they'll do that through behavioral questions, and they'll want to understand your passions and values. There is also a post-interview reflection. So let's go through each of these in more detail. So the first part of the interview is likely to focus on your background. And so this can include your academic background, your professional history, the activities you've been involved with on an extracurricular basis. And because your interviewer has gone through your application, you're not likely to get the standard interview questions of tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume. Instead, your interviewer will just likely jump right in with specific questions about your background to get more color and clarity, as well as to fill in any holes that may be there in your story. And so to do well in this section, there are a couple of things that you should keep in mind. One, it's important to, of course, understand your background and story and to be able to convey them both very clearly. And 2, to also be able to explain the why. So your resume and application in general will have a lot of the facts. And so the interviewer's questions are really an opportunity for them to go into more detail with respect to how you've accomplished something, and for you to explain the rationale of a decision that you may have made. So let's go through a couple of sample questions so you can sort of get a sense of what could potentially be asked. So here's the first one on the slide. Why did you decide to attend your university? So this may seem like a very basic question, but your response will highlight what you look for in an academic institution and the qualities that you value. And so, for instance, did you choose your college because of its academic rigor? What does this show? This can indicate that you are intellectually curious and you like to challenge yourself. Now, try to take that one step further and personalize it. Did you maybe write a thesis which shed new insight on a problem? If so, you can mention that. Or maybe you chose your university because it has a small class size and there were ample opportunities to collaborate with your peers, to share your experiences, and to have impact. If that's the case, then that shows how you're a team player. And again, you can personalize your response with a brief example of how you collaborated with your peers in college. Or maybe it's because the university is particularly strong in the subject that you majored in, and that subject links really closely with what you decided to do post-college and what you want to do post-MBA. So the strongest responses to this question would highlight what you really liked about the university, with a specific example or two thrown in, showing how you also embody those similar qualities. Let's move on to the second sample question here. Why did you decide to make a move from company A to company B? Now, through this type of a question, your interviewer is essentially asking you to connect the dots in your story. So this is really the perfect opportunity to shed some light on the why. So in other words, what did company B provide you with that company A did not? Was it certain skills or knowledge? Did company B maybe bring you closer to what you ultimately, aspire to do in the future? Were you maybe seeking a different culture? And if so, why were you seeking that? Maybe company B was smaller and more collaborative, and so you would be able to take on more responsibility. What you do not want to do with this question is talk negatively about company A if there were aspects about it that did not appeal to you. Everything in the interview should always be positioned from a lens of positivity and growth. I've actually also seen some candidates get defensive when these types of questions are asked. But remember, your interviewer is just simply trying to understand your rationale for the choices that you've made. So just try to answer the question without getting emotional. So to recap this section, with the background questions, really try to make sure to emphasize your strengths, to explain your rationale if necessary, and to personalize your answers with specific examples. So in addition to the background questions, part of the HBS interview will also be spent on understanding your future post-MBA goals further. After all, you're gaining, going to business school essentially to gain the skills and knowledge to attain those goals. So through these questions, your interviewer is likely to dig more deeply to understand, again, how the dots are being connected in your story and how an MBA from HBS specifically fits into the picture. So your interviewer will want to understand what's motivating your career goals and how this also links to your values. And oftentimes I've seen that this closely relates to your prior experiences. You're also likely to get questions that probe your knowledge of the industry that you're interested in. So you should really have an understanding of recent trends in that industry and what you see as potential opportunities and challenges. So for example, if your post-MBA goals, let's just say, are to join the healthcare practice of an investment bank, you should be knowledgeable about recent healthcare transactions that have occurred and the rationale for those transactions. So really anything related to your goals and to your industry are really fair game. And throughout these types of questions, as always, your passion and enthusiasm for your goals and for HBS should be coming through. Now, from what I've seen, weak responses are ones where a candidate cannot connect the dots in his or her story, where there are no clear motivating factors for why a candidate is pursuing his or her goals, or where an applicant just has surface knowledge of the industry that they're interested in. So let's go through a couple of sample questions so you can get a sense of how to think about them. So here's the first one. Tell me more about your post-MBA goals. So here, what I've seen tends to happen is one of two things. One is, candidates either just state both their goals, long-term and short-term, and then kind of just stop right there. Or it's the exact opposite. Candidates really approach this as an open-ended question and kind of go on and on without, any structure when they're responding. And so, unfortunately, neither of those ways is really the optimal way to address this question. So how should you answer it? I always think it's helpful to start out by stating both your long-term and short-term goals. This does provide an anchor for the rest of the question, but don't stop there. After stating your goals, provide some color on what's motivating you to pursue them. So could help your interviewer connect the dots. So going back to the example of healthcare investment banking as a post-MBA goal, maybe you or a loved one faced health issues and you have a finance background. And so your goals are being motivated by combining your strong personal interest in healthcare based on what you experienced with your prior professional experience in finance. So as you can see, by answering this question in this way, stating your goals and then what's motivating them, your thought process will be clear and your passions, your values, your prior experiences will all come through, which is what will really make your response compelling in the eyes of your interviewer. Let's move on to the other sample question that's here. What do you see as the biggest opportunities in your post-MBA role? What do you see as the biggest challenges? Now here, your interviewer is gauging your interest, your knowledge, and your passion for the role that you want to take on in the future and the field that you want to immerse yourself in. So how well do you know the industry and what your future role will entail? Candidates who are able to go into more depth in the response will essentially demonstrate that their goals have been well thought out. So to be prepared and to answer this question, you do need to really understand what's going on in your industry. Now, I see that candidates can typically handle that part, when it comes to the opportunities, but they sometimes falter on the part of the question that asks about challenges. And so being realistic about your goals, especially as it pertains to challenges that you foresee facing, is actually a sign of self-awareness and maturity. So when it comes to that part of the question, don't feel like you need to sugarcoat your response. In fact, your interviewer will really appreciate your honesty in this response as it pertains to the challenges. And if you can even mention some ways in which you see yourself overcoming and addressing those potential challenges, that's even better. This would actually be a really great place to briefly state how an MBA from HBS in particular can help you overcome those challenges. So to sort of wrap up this section, with the post-MBA goals, make sure that you can clearly convey both your long-term and short-term career goals, how the dots are being connected in your story, and why you're seeking an MBA from HBS. Now, moving on, another type of question that's likely to come up are behavioral questions. Now, these often start out in the following ways. Tell me about a time when, or describe a time when. And with these questions, your interviewer really wants to understand how you've behaved in the past, since that can often predict how you will act in the future. And so to prepare for these questions, it's always good to have a range of examples in your back pocket. They can be professional examples, extracurricular examples, really ones that you can use to respond to the questions and very clearly illustrate your prior behaviors. The biggest mistake that I see with these questions is candidates going off on tangents, which just results in long-winded answers. I would suggest using the STAR model, which you can see on the slide, as a framework when you're asked behavioral questions, to really keep you on point. So what is the STAR model? So essentially in the STAR model, the S stands for situation, the T for tasks, the A for actions, and the R for results. So the best way to respond to these questions is to briefly lay out the situation so that your interviewer understands the context, followed by the tasks, and then the actions that you took to complete those tasks. And the heart of the answer should really focus on the actions, since it's through the actions that you took that you will really be conveying your qualities and behaviors. And then finally, you should wrap up your answer by stating the outcome and the results that were achieved through your actions. So let's go through a couple of sample questions to illustrate the framework. So let's say your interviewer asks you about a time when you successfully led a team. How should you go about answering it? So first, describe the situation. Assuming you decide to go with the professional example, mention where you were working, the leadership role that you took on, what the overall objective was. Next, talk about the tasks and the actions. What actions did you have to take to complete those tasks? So when you were leading this team, for example, did you have to collaborate with colleagues across the firm? Did you maybe have to implement any new procedures or systems? If so, what did that entail? Or maybe you had to run some sort of an analysis to get to the desired outcome. So notice that it's through the actions that your qualities are coming through and your behaviors. So in this particular case, those qualities would be how you're collaborative, how you're innovative, how you have a very strong analytical skill set. Now, regardless of whether you use a professional example, and again, you could have easily addressed this question with a leadership example from your extracurricular activities, but in either case, the goal is to really showcase your qualities. Let's go through the other question that's on the slide. Tell me about a time when you failed. So this question is a daunting one, but by using the STAR model, it will be much easier to handle. And keep in mind, everyone fails. And so the key with this question is demonstrating your honesty, your maturity, your self-awareness. So going back to the STAR model, let's go through how you can go about answering this question. So, as you know by now, the first step is to outline the situation. So what was the scenario? What was your role? What was the overall objective? Next, talk about the tasks that you had to, do to attain the objective, and then speak about the actions that you took to try to and complete those tasks. What was the ultimate result? Now, given what the question is asking, within the tasks, actions, and the results, you should also address what went wrong and why you ended up failing. Why were you, for some reason, not able to complete the tasks as expected? So again, you want to be very genuine in your response because everyone fails. And your interviewer will be just trying to understand how you respond to failure, how you grow from it, how you're able to bounce back. So taking a little bit of time to address what went wrong in the course of the action is actually very important for this question. Now, this is usually where most candidates' responses end, but the answer will actually be stronger and more compelling if you take it one step further. So after talking about how you failed, you should also mention what you learned from this experience. Through this self-reflection, you will clearly show how you're open to growth, which is really an important quality that not only HBS, but really all of the top business schools are eager to see. So when responding to behavioral questions, definitely go back to using the STAR model. It will help you immensely. Okay, so the last set of questions you're likely to get are what I call miscellaneous questions. The typical kind of why HBS type questions you're not really likely to get as much. Mainly because HBS already knows why you and every other candidate wants to go there. Instead, these miscellaneous type questions are really being asked for the interviewer to get to know you better. You can see some of the sample questions here, but they do serve a purpose, even though they may come across as a little bit random. They're really helping to paint a holistic picture of who you are, and they provide the interviewer with even more insight into your values. They're also sometimes asked to see how you can think on the spot. Remember, HBS has the case method, and part of that involves the cold call before every case, where the professor will essentially ask a student to open up the case discussion without that student having any advance notice. So don't be taken aback by these questions. They can actually, in my view, be quite fun to answer since, they're really meant to elicit additional, more unique information about you that just is not there in the rest of the application. So let's go through the sample questions. So the first one is, what book have you read recently or are currently reading? Now, this is a really great opportunity for your intellectual curiosity, for your personality, any other interests that may not have come up in the interview to come through. Remember, HBS is trying to shape a class of students with diverse experiences and interests. So don't be shy to mention a book that may or may not be business related. In fact, I would say, there's a tendency for candidates to typically cite books that are related to business or management. And while that's fine, if you really can't think of anything else, there really is no right or wrong answer here. It's not really going to give the interviewer any new information about you. So I would actually, encourage you to talk about a book that provides your interviewer with unique insight into who you are, what your passions are, and what you really enjoy. And as you answer this question, make sure to tell your interviewer why you chose to read that book and what about it particularly appeals to you, so that your interviewer can understand you better. So let's go through the second sample question here. Who is a leader that you admire and why? Now, this question could be asked in different ways. They could ask it as, what is your leadership style, or what are traits that you find to be appealing in a leader? So it is helpful to think about leadership and what it means to you as you prepare for the interview. So through this question, your interviewer is trying to get a sense of what you value when it comes to leadership. So there is, again, no right or wrong answer, but the stronger and the more compelling answers will really delve into the traits that this leader has. and that you find to be attractive, and why those traits are so appealing to you when it comes to leadership. And don't think that you have to be restricted to naming famous leaders to answer this question, which is what many candidates believe. Sometimes there are leaders in your local community who are also doing really inspirational and impactful things, and also, showing really admirable leadership styles. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box when it comes to these questions. Now, at the very end, your interviewer may ask if you have any questions for him or her. And so you should definitely make sure to prepare a few questions beforehand. The biggest mistake I see is candidates telling the interviewer that they don't have any questions. You should definitely ask a question if your interviewer gives you the opportunity. Otherwise, you run the risk that you may come across as lacking interest or curiosity. And so asking the right questions will require some work on your part. Now, the one thing I will say is that it's important not to ask any questions where the answer can easily be found on the school's website. So HBS would really expect you to know basic things about the school. And if you're asking questions that don't come across as thoughtful, that really won't reflect well on you, and your interviewer will really wonder how serious you are about wanting to attend the school. So for the miscellaneous questions, just try to be yourself and convey your passions and values. I strongly believe that authenticity does go a long way. And finally, HBS is unique from other business schools since after the interview, you will have 24 hours to write and submit a post-interview reflection. The prompt has most recently been the following: you've just had your HBS interview. How well did we get to know you? There is no word limit for this question, but based on my experience, somewhere around 500 to 600 words tends to be a good length. So what is the purpose of the post-interview reflection? Now, one aspect to keep in mind is that you only have 24 hours to write it. So unlike the main essay in your application, and the other parts of the application, which you had plenty of time to think about, and you could go through multiple iterations, and you could show it to others to get feedback, that's more difficult to do within a 24-hour time frame. And so through this exercise, the admissions committee really wants to get a true sense of who you are, what your thought process is with respect to assessing the interview experience and how you communicate. So what should you focus on and write about in the post-interview reflection? It should, of course, be tailored according to what you discussed in the interview. If you feel that the interviewer got to know you well, then you should mention that, and also mention why you thought that was the case. On the other hand, if you feel that you could have clarified some of your answers during the interview, or there were aspects of your candidacy that you did not have the opportunity to discuss, then this is the platform for you to bring that up. Now, you can also use the post-interview reflection to touch upon your impressions from being on campus if you opted to do an on-campus interview, or to reiterate your enthusiasm for the school and why HBS is the best place for you to get your MBA. And so, as is true of every piece of the application, use the post-interview reflection, as a means for the admissions committee to get to know you better. Now, as we wrap up, I hope today's session on the HBS interview and how to prepare for it has been helpful. Getting an invitation to interview is both exciting and also a little daunting. But with today's in-depth overview of what you can expect from the HBS interview, as well as tips to help you do well and pitfalls to avoid, you should be able to go into your interview with confidence. And as I tell all of my clients who are interviewing for HBS, and really any business school for that matter, you should feel really great about having the opportunity to tell the school more about yourself. And while I understand that interviews can cause anxiety, after all, I have literally been in your shoes, try to also have some fun in the process. At the end of the day, just be yourself. I truly believe, and this is really, an important sort of, foundation of Ivy Group, but I truly believe that authenticity and being genuine are the keys to the MBA application process. So at Ivy Group, I've worked with hundreds of diverse clients with varied backgrounds throughout every step of the application process, including the interview, to help them get into the school of their dreams. So if I can help you with interview preparation for HBS or any other MBA program or with any part of the process, don't hesitate to reach out. Note that Ivy Group has an E at the end, so you can find out more about my company at www.ivygroup.com, or you can shoot us an email at info@ivygroup.com. And again, group has an E at the end. We are a boutique MBA admissions consulting company. So for all engagements, I am the primary consultant and I work directly with clients. And so this really differs from other MBA admissions consulting firms that pair you or match you with a consultant who they think will be the best fit. These consultants are primarily working part-time or maybe less experienced. And so I want to stress that this is my full-time role. And so, we offer very personalized services. Our clients always come first. We also have a very dedicated advisory board comprised of professionals who have attended the top business schools and who have a very deep understanding of the MBA admissions process. And so they are a really great sounding board. And we've successfully helped clients get admitted to a range of MBA programs, both within the US and abroad, such as Europe. So you will be in very experienced hands. So our process, I want to stress again, is very collaborative. We engage in, a very interactive dialogue with you to help you accomplish your goals. Feel free to reach out or review our testimonials on our website or right here on GMAT Club. So I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to listen to my insights on HBS and the interview in particular. If my company or I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to hearing from you. Good luck with the rest of the application process. For those of you who need to drop off, enjoy the rest of the day. For others, I'm happy to take some questions if there is time. All right, so there's a question right here. All right, so here's the first question. If someone gets dinged after interviewing, do you think that means that the interview did not go well, or was it the overall application? So it's really tough to pinpoint an exact reason as to why you may be dinged after an interview. It could have been that the interviewer didn't feel you were a good fit after speaking with you. But it could be just, based off of the entire pool of candidates who are interviewing. Maybe there were some candidates, who just emerged a little bit more strong in sort of the process, who, may be just a better fit, or when it comes to how they're shaping that class or filling up more of the holes that they're looking for as they fill up the class. So it's really tough to say. So it could be the interview. It could be another aspect of the application, or just how you stack up against the rest of that candidate pool. So here's another question. So what are some of the brand traits that HBS looks for apart from leadership? So leadership is, of course, the #1 quality that HBS will be looking for. They will also be looking for, and it's right on their website, engaged community citizenship. So they want to see how immersed in the community you are, because they're going to use that as an indicator of how engaged you will be in the community as a student on campus. And They also look at your analytical aptitude. That's right there on their website. So I would say those are the three main qualities that HBS is looking for. Another one to think about is teamwork and collaboration. I think that's becoming very, very important, over time. And if you look at the different sort of activities you can get involved with on campus at HBS, the field program, even just the case study method, being able to collaborate with others is really, really important. How many questions and typically how long does the HBS interview take? So the HBS interview is 30 minutes. The number of questions will really just vary. Some questions, I guess I would say in terms of the number, I've probably seen, maybe 10 to 12 or 10 to 15. It really depends on what sort of holes they want to fill about you as they're going through your application. Do you have specific interview prep services? So for my interview prep services, the way it works is we essentially do it on an hourly basis. So typically, we need about a couple of hours where, I can sort of speak with you about what to expect in the interview, go through your materials, and then we can use some time for the mock interview and for feedback. But feel free to email me. You can email me at info@hbgroup.com, and we can definitely go through any specifics. Is the interview for 2+2 the same as a normal MBA interview? Yeah, I think you can definitely approach it the same way as a normal one. Now, keep in mind for 2+2 candidates, I would probably say that there will be more emphasis on leadership. And the reason for that is essentially with the 2+2 candidate, the school is giving up a spot without really seeing what that full candidate pool will look like 2 years from now. So they really want to make sure that you possess those qualities at this point in your life. So I would almost say that there will be a little bit more emphasis on your leadership qualities and the impact you've had, probably a little bit more so than the normal interview. Great. Well, thank you again for your time. I really hope this has been helpful. Again, enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you.